I'm Father George Salzman of the Harvard Catholic Center. We're here in the Student Lounge, and I'd like to talk about this past week's Gospel. It's the Gospel of what we call the Prodigal Son, and that's the 15th chapter of Luke's Gospel. You know, it's intriguing to notice that if you look at anthologies of world literature, that's usually the most popular selection from the Christian Gospels or religious writings. And I think it's because it captures the hearts of people, whether or not they're Catholic or Christian or theistic at all. Because it's a story that says something really profound about human nature, but also in germ, deeply, about that need we have at the center of our hearts for God as well. Because it's aptly been said that it's not really so much the prodigal son, prodigal meaning spendthrift. You know, we only use the word, it seems, in that thing so often in that parable, so we often don't necessarily know what prodigal means. I believe it means spendthrift. And so, in a sense, you might say the prodigal father, because the father is so spendthrift in his love. The first son and then the other one as well. So generous, looking beyond his own concerns. So again, the 15th chapter of Luke for you to take a look. Now, what I always like to counsel people is as follows. That if you read the parable in isolation, you miss almost all the point, because it has a framing to itself. You know how you go to a museum and you, even an abstract painting, you get an inkling of what's up by looking at what the title is. Well, the parable starts at 15, verse 11, but the framing is chapter 15, the first 3 verses. And it says that the scribes and others were criticizing Jesus for eating with sinners. And it says directly, in response, he told them this parable. So it's really responsive to their critique. And as you know, many times they paid attention to Christ, but it was completely for an ulterior motive, to use it against him, to have him up on false charges, or misunderstandings, obviously, to enlarge those. And that's not unknown today. So when we see this in that context, it brings it to life, because we come to understand that fellow who went away and came back and was loved so fully is exactly like Christ, going out and reaching out to sinners, saying quite brightly in another place that those who are well don't need a doctor, those who are sick do. And of course he's speaking of each of us in that sense. And that applies not only to the younger son, but to the older son at the end, who, like us in many ways, is angry that the fellow who blew all the money and diminished the estate be coddled. And yet, in a sense, there's also a separation there, and he needs the father's love, and they need to be a family, and so do all of us. It's a truly profound thing. There was a story about, I'm reading a marvelous book about introducing Pope John the 23rd. And there's the famous thick one, John the 23rd, Shepherd of the Modern World. There's another one by a woman who's written on contemporary saints, such as Padre Pio and Maximilian Kolbe. And she has one on John the 23rd, Patricia Tracy, Treece, which I recommend. It has a number of aperçus that are great. And one of them is, when he was Bishop of Venice, before he became Pope, his secretary was chiding him and repeating what the local priest said, that there was a priest who was difficult and had his problems, and he was trying a succession of cures for him, and they thought he should just be thrown out of the priesthood. At which point, John the 23rd took a glass from the table where they were having dinner and held it up. He says, "Whose is this?" And they said, "The house's or yours." And then he held it up over the marble floor. And he said, "If I drop it, whose is it now?" Of course, it would be in smithereens, but it would still be his. And you can see the point of trying to make things work, keep things together, bundle them up, but get things cured, which is exactly what Christ was doing with the prodigal son, and so the Pope, eventually with success, was doing in the case of that priest. I was mentioning to him at the business school to perhaps capture that in a way that's key. The famous painting of Christ the light of the world. Christ the light of the world. It's in Keble College, Oxford, and it's also, I think, in the back in the apse of St. Paul's Cathedral, London, on Ludgate Hill. And it shows Christ in a garden, beautiful old cottage, stone cottage. He's there with the garden around. He's at the door, this great wood door. And he has a lantern, so it's Christ the light of the world. But then they always point out this telling detail, that the door has no doorknob. And the explanation is always given. The point is always made. The door has no doorknob because it actually represents the human heart. And the only way to open the human heart is from within. When we are told the parable of the prodigal son, even people who don't believe in God have had all the defenses, have had the armoire against the door to keep Christ or religion out. Christ is already inside with them. They almost don't even have to open the door. because it's so telling and so touching and precisely what we need. You've made us for yourself, O Lord. Our hearts shall ever be restless until they rest in you. May God bless you.